All right, Locomotion Episode 7, North America in the Midwest in 1920. All right, let's do this. 1920. Let's change my face to something a little bit better. We'll pause the game and we will max out our available loan. Don't forget, it just doesn't stop once, it'll actually stop twice. So keep hitting that bank up for more money until they stop giving you money. So the whole point of this, oh wait, we're going to change my colors first, just so I can see what the hell is going on. And the whole point of this level is to deliver 2,500 passengers in 10 years. Alright, this doesn't seem too tough. Almost just like episode 6. We're going to look for the most, or the largest city, and we're going to connect that to something hopefully that is going to be nearby. It's not going to cost us a fortune. Ideally, it'd be great to connect the most populous city with the second most populous city, but that could be clear across the map and you wouldn't have enough money to do it anyways. So we're going to start here. Jackson, Mississippi? Maybe? I don't know. Could be. So we will create a platform here as close to the city center as possible without destroying the city center. Cities don't like that when you unnecessarily remove their roads and remove their buildings. Actually, if you didn't know this already, you can actually remove all the roads in a city without penalty. It's whenever you start removing the homes and the businesses and the structures, that's when city council starts getting really irritated with you as a transport company. So it looks like we're going to connect this to Houston, Texas. Although the vegetation here, I would have thought it would be a little bit less green, but then again, I don't know the first thing about Houston, Texas. Maybe it is actually quite green. I'm not sure. I thought it was a little bit more barren. I should probably check it out on Google Earth at some point. So I think these platforms are 10 long, and I think we have a little bit of we have two options for trains. I think I took the one with the most power. So we created one train so that it'll also include a mail car just to pick up the mail between the two stations, even though we don't technically need to. It's always helpful to keep the train platforms as free from material, or not so much material, but free from other items that can be easily picked up on the same train, such as mail. So we're going to connect, we're going to run another line up to Memphis. This one's a little bit shorter of a platform, but meh, doesn't matter. So these trains we did not give any orders to. So because we gave them, I guess, open orders, they're just going to hit every station along the circuit. And when they hit the end of the circuit, they're going to reverse and go in the opposite direction. Alright, so what's the second most populous city? Chicago. And so The tricky part about the Midwest, and as you work your way west, is that the terrain starts to get a little bit more difficult. It's no longer as flat as it was, say, in the east of the United States or North America. It's you start running into challenging terrain. So as you can see, Chicago is pretty much surrounded by either water on one side or mountains on the others. So we're just doing a little bit of preliminary survey. Let's see if we can hook up Chicago to something. Let's see what's around here. Can we go to Grand Rapids? Maybe. Or would it be better to go to Milwaukee? We could go to Indianapolis, but that's at a much higher elevation. Let's see if we can connect to Grand Rapids in some sort of efficient way. I think what we'll do is we'll actually tunnel. Now, even though tunneling is quite a bit more expensive, it's a lot more efficient to tunnel under the city than it is to actually go up over a mountain to get to a city. So here in this case, we're going to have an underground train station, which serves pretty much the same function as a regular train station, except that it's underground. And the great thing about having an underground station is that the city can actually grow above it, and you're not, impacting any buildings or any roads. So when you start doing more complicated routes, and the stations start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you can have a train station that could be 4 or even 8 platforms long. It's probably more beneficial to actually put that underground rather than having them on the surface, where the city center just ends up becoming nothing but a big giant train station. So we're going to run another line from Chicago, and you can see how that train has no orders. So it just basically goes to the end of the circuit, and then it just turns around and heads back the same way how it came. It looks like we're getting a little bit tight on money as well. We started off, I think, with $90,000, and we're down to $3,200. Let's see if we have enough. Can I get to St. Louis? Maybe. Is it St. Louis or St. Louis? I think it's St. Louis. Yeah, St. Louis, Missouri? Yeah, that sounds right. So I don't have a lot of money. Actually, I'm plumb broke. So at this point, I can't really connect these 2 lines until I have enough money. So at this point, it's almost like a waiting game, where you're waiting for the weeks to go by so you get your next paycheck, so you can finish up this railway. Uh-oh, bankruptcy. The banks don't like me. That's alright. We're a little bit in the red. That's okay. I have about 6 months to turn this around. Oh, now I only have 3 months to turn this around, Can I borrow more money? Sure, why not? Let's borrow a little bit more money, just so I can finish this up. Do I have enough to finish? Looks like I might. Nice. Now that line is taking a little bit of a dog leg around the hills. It's not the most efficient of lines, but at least that train now is going from Chicago to St. Louis and actually doing something rather than nothing at all. Snow! So I have 7 years left and I've only completed 22% of my challenge. And I'm hovering in bankruptcy, which is not great. I think what is happening here is that these cities are so small. Another bankruptcy warning. The cities are so small and the infrastructure required to connect these cities is so expensive that I keep running a deficit. I've only moved about 659 passengers, which is not great. So as long as I don't spend money, I should be okay. Oh, what happened here? Okay, it doesn't look like it's gonna work. I think what I'm doing is I'm going back to see how I actually did this. So I'm taking a look at an old save file. This is the same map. But on this particular save file, I was successful in completing the challenge. So, you know what that means? Let's start a new game! Alright. North America, Midwest, 1920. We're going to start a new game. We're going to change my face, change my color. We know what the challenge is. We're going to see if we can do this now. Bump up the amount of money that I have available to me. So this is one of those instances where I flunked out the very first try. I wasn't able to do it. I can see right away that I wasn't making money. I was 3 months away from bankruptcy. It just wasn't working out. So, let's see how I do this time. I think what might have happened is that Chicago link. I think it was too expensive to do the tunnel to Grand Rapids, and it just wasn't worth it. There wasn't enough passengers to make it worthwhile. So here we're going to connect, I think it was something to Memphis. What is this? Oh, Jackson to Memphis. And we're also going to shorten up the trains. And I think what I'm going to do actually is pick the cheaper train too. So we're going to shorten up the platforms, pick the cheaper train, try and be a little bit more cost conscious. So the second most populous city is Newark, New Jersey. And we're going to try and connect it where are we going to try and connect it to? Charlotte? That is a long stretch. But we have $71,000. You might be able to do it. Are we going to connect it to Buffalo, maybe? Let's try Buffalo. And sure, I probably could connect industries so I get more money up front, and then I could run circuits to move passengers around. But I like living life on the edge. Let's see what happens. So right now, I'm just taking a look at the terrain, seeing what the elevations are going to need to be once I hit Newark. So we're going to try Buffalo to Newark. Let's see what happens. I almost wish the terrain editor, or the way how we adjust land, instead of being a circle, maybe it could be configured as a rectangle, maybe a 1x5, so that we're not necessarily having to pick each individual square along the proposed route, such as we are right now. I think you can only the adjust land editor can only work in squares, so that's why it's either like a 1x1 or a 2x2 or 3x3. Alright, so we're going to pick a cheap train, a couple passengers car, and a mail car. Oh, we can probably use another passenger car. There we go. Put the mail car in the end. Why not? Send it on its way. No orders. So now we have the second and the third most populous city connected. So the most populous city has changed since we first originally started this game and is now Albuquerque, New Mexico. So what we're doing here is we're going to see what we can connect it to, and it's a little tricky to do because we have this huge canyon between Albuquerque and El Paso. So we're just checking the elevations, seeing whether or not we can actually bridge across this canyon. I think the maximum height for a bridge can be 50. Oh, let's see what's going on with Chicago. Maybe I can do this circuit a little bit more efficiently. So we know what happens when we tried to hit Grand Rapids, and there's St. Louis. And that's what's kind of cool about this game, is that the options are the options are almost limitless. It's whatever you feel like, the amount of creativity that you have. It's great. But like I said in I think it was in episode 6, as you get into the later part of the game, it just becomes a great big train management simulator where you're just basically replacing and building trains all the time. You can have $4 million in the bank or $15 million in the bank, and you can't do any building because all you're doing is just replacing trains. So let's take a look here. What do we got? Charlotte to Greensboro. The land is relatively flat. Is it worthwhile though? Might be. What about Cincinnati? Cincinnati to Greensboro. It's a lot shorter. I think these platforms are only 8 long versus 10 or 12 as I had previously done in other levels. These are only 8 long. Again, you want to position these stations as close to the city centers as possible without actually destroying buildings. So I probably could have done a tunnel, but those are really expensive to build. As they say, the juice might have not been worth the squeeze to build a tunnel here. Got a train going. I think we can probably actually connect this to Columbus and create a circuit with 3 stations. So I might as well pay off some of my loan because every month I have interest payments, and the lower the loan, the lower the interest payments. I think the interest payment is $7,000 a year. So yeah, you want to lower. I can use that $7,000 a year actually building new circuits, but we'll see if we'll need to. Yeah, that first year I paid $8,200 in interest on a $90,000 loan. So I think what I'm doing now is I'm just scouting around to see if I can make a 4th circuit or if I can actually extend a circuit that already exists. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a double platform so I can have another train coming into Jackson without interfering with the first train. So the question is, can I get to Charlotte from here? Houston to Charlotte, can we do it? Maybe. Guess there's only one way to find out next to actually do it. Oof. This is a long distance. Upon further reflection, I probably could have terraformed that mountaintop and made it a whole hell of a lot cheaper. But instead of doing that, let's borrow a bunch of money. Yeah, that was stupid. As I'm watching this now, that was dumb. I probably should have lowered the land by 5 meters rather than doing all this bridge nonsense across the top of that hill. But oh well. So at this point, it's just a matter of time to connect these two lines. Hopefully they'll be profitable. So because of the distance is a little bit longer, I'm going to pick the more expensive train just so that it travels a little bit faster and it has a little bit more power to get up and over this hill. And we might as well pay down my loan. Alright, so we're at 56%. Time remaining, 7 years, 7 months. Unless something catastrophic happens, it does look like I'm going to be able to complete this level. I think at this point we're just waiting it out. Wow, this is some narration, you know, for a video that's half an hour long. There's really not much to talk about this game. Ships. You want to talk about ships? I got some time. I can talk about ships for 12%. Ships are part of this game, and they are only profitable under very specific circumstances. And I think in the later levels, where I actually start to use ships, you'll start to see just what those circumstances are. I can't remember off the top of my head what they are, but The ships are so expensive to build and replace, and they are so slow in moving material and passengers around. It's just not worth it. Hey, I'm all done. On to the next one.